So we're back. So Fran, I want you to take me to the feelings that were inside you, because I can see you getting very emotional when you're talking about this. As if you were writing the story yourself, what feelings were going through you from when you realized, I'm in trouble?
Yeah, I realized I was in trouble. Like I said, the water, I knew it was 3 to 4 feet, because the deck is 3 to 4 feet off the ground. I was begging for somebody to pull me over the fence. The water is not stopping. And mind you, I'm screaming. That's another thing. My neighbor across the street said to my son, please, thank you, mother, because I woke up everybody on the block. I was screaming. I was screaming back there. I was screaming for Sam next door. Sam, Sam. And I'm screaming. And then it finally gets to the point where this is do or die. I can't beg anymore. I says, I gotta get out of here. When I seen the cooler floating off, I jumped on the cooler and it took me out in the middle of the houses here. And I thought that was all right. This is not so bad. This is easy sailing over here. By the time I got out to the street, they talk about the surge all the time. I was in that surge. The surge knocked me off my cooler. There was no way I could stand the cooler. By that point, the cars were floating away. Now I'm not on the cooler. I tried to jump on the car, and I kept falling off with the surge, and it was slippery. The surge, by that point, was, I wasn't swimming. I was doing a lot of kicking to stay above water, but the surge was pushing me. And I was screaming, and at one point, it pushed me maybe 8 homes away. But Dave, that 8 homes at that moment felt like a mile. And people asked me, how long do you think you were in the water? And it must have felt like hours, but in all reality, it was seconds. And the surge pushed me maybe 8 homes away, and I was screaming, and then I said to myself, God, please don't let it hurt, because I thought I was going to die. I says, this water is so strong, it's going to push me into something. There was boats up the block too. I seen boats, and they said boats. I says, the water is so strong, it's going to push me into something. I'm going to die, or I'm going to get hurt, and I'm just going to lie here until somebody finds me. And I says, God, please don't let it hurt. And if I didn't believe in God back then, I believe in Him now. And I feel it in my heart. Because I grabbed a tree. It was a small little tree over there. And there's people who have higher homes over there. And naturally they were standing outside and me screaming. There was a man over there. And I got off the tree and made it to his steps. And he put me in his home, and I stayed in his home. And like I said, I believe in God, because I felt comfortable after that, because he was a man who was in the Coast Guard for 18 years.
Wow.
Only God could have put me in a man with all that experience, where I was still scared. Don't get me wrong, I was scared, but I was more comfortable because I knew he was trained professional. But even sitting there in that home, I was scared. Now he has a higher home with steps going all the way up, 2 steps in his house. And it was his wife, his daughter, and myself sitting there on the couch. Now mind you, people think we're just sitting there watching TV, having a good time. We had no power, there was no TV, there was no lights, and it was getting cold. And his wife, me, the daughter, it was like sitting there waiting to die, because the water is coming up, and it was coming up in his house, even though he had other higher levels.
So maybe his house was up here. So he was like maybe 7 or 8 feet above.
It had to be even higher. There was a garage underneath him, so the water covered his garage, all his steps in the front, and got into the first level of his house, going up a few steps. It was like, when you see the water coming in the house, it's like is it gonna stop? And
And your house is, I'd say probably about, your front step's about 4 feet,
right,
about 4 feet above street level.
right.
So how high was the water actually in your home when you left?
Oh, we had, in this home, 7 feet of water. It covered maybe 3/4 of the window. And we had Dave 14 feet, I heard the next day, 14 feet of water out there.
Well, the waves were coming in at 14 feet. So your home is 4 feet above the ground. So you're saying up here, the water was up here.
Lower, the water was right. maybe
The
down
water was,
there.
so I'm 6 feet, one. So the water was 6 feet high in your home, 4 feet out there. So the surge on the street, or the main body was 10 feet high. So you were out there probably in close to 10 feet of water surging away.
Yeah.
So describe for me in like single words, like terrified, scared. What was going through you as you were thinking you were floating to your death?
I thought I was going to die. And I thought about my family. I have children. Believe it or not,
What are your children's names?
my oldest daughter is Stephanie, Teresa, Christine, and Michael. And Dave, I forgot to say, my son Michael was living with me for the last 2 years in this home. And I recently got him a job where I work in the hospital, and my son was on probation. So he was in Brooklyn and I was in Staten Island. And I said to my son, because they were going to close down all the power, the buses, transit, the whole bit. I said, Michael, you're going to make it home. I said, but you may not make it back to work when he was on probation. That's why I believe in
So
God.
you stayed in Brooklyn.
He stayed in Brooklyn. And I think that night, if he was here, now he's a young man, he was 23 years old at the time, he's not a little boy. So it would have been both of us out there, my son trying to struggle for me, and me trying to struggle for my son. And I often wonder that night, hopefully both of us would have made it, but when people are fearing for each other, it's usually tragic comes out of it. And it could have been my son out there, and he was in Brooklyn. And I thought about my kids. I knew my oldest daughter, Stephanie, she was in Queens. She was nowhere near the ocean. My daughter, Teresa, I knew was all right. She was in a higher apartment. My daughter, Christine, lived in Brooklyn, pretty close to the water. She lived near Bay Parkway. And Bay Parkway, the water did come on Bay Parkway over there.
Absolutely.
And all I kept thinking that night, kids are kids, they think it's a joke. They see the water in the street. And while I was sitting in that man's home, I kept saying, I hope she ran to her father's house up the block where it's higher level. I hope. And all I had on my mind was my daughter Christine that night. And it was hard. And I went swimming, being pushed by the surge. I had my phone on me. And I tried calling, and actually my phone was dead. You actually seen smoke coming out of my phone. I don't know what made me do the things that I did that night, like jump in there with my phone, what made me put boots on. But the boots could have saved me because there was a lot of loose electrical wires and everything. The boots could have grounded me while I was out there. A lot of people on the block were like, how could you do that? I didn't have a choice. I'm 52 years old, and I have my family. I also found out the month of October, my daughter was pregnant. I found this out after the hurricane.
To your grandmother.
Yeah. So maybe that's why I'm here. Because I look at my granddaughter every day, and I say, things happen for a reason. I got caught in a hurricane. It was a tragedy. It was terrible, not just for me, for everybody that got caught in that hurricane. It was horrible, but I learned a lot of things. Even though the lady across the street, she didn't help me, I learned for everyone bad is too good. Okay, I went out there, the man up the block helped me. I had wonderful volunteers like you yourself, Dave, Lisa, um,
Andy.
Andy, Mike. I'm very bad with names, but if I have to tell you, there was people from all over California, upstate, outside in front of my house, maybe 15, 20 people gotten out my home, taking everything in my home that was soaking wet, wet furniture that was turned upside down, personal items that were all over the place, and the volunteers felt my pain, felt my heart. I had people out there hugging me, okay? They felt my pain. And there's volunteers. Lisa still texts me. I needed help one day. Now the volunteers, naturally some of them, they all went back home to their states, where they live. So they're a little harder to come by right now. But Lisa says to me, I'll take off from work. Who does these things?
That's my Lisa.
And I was like, no, I couldn't ask her to do that there. I got the issue resolved, but I learned with tragedy, I learned to be a different person. Like I said, I feel God in my heart. And the things that bothered me before, stupid things, like maybe people parking in front of the house, a big truck. You can park anything you want over there now. I'm a different person, and everyone on this block, I hope it stays this way. I feel we're all different people. We're closer with each other now.
Nice. So, can we take a walk down the block so you can show me the house you went to?
Yeah.
And you want to hit it? The red button? Thanks.